Okay, I'm going to go over this assignment, starting with case 1-1A, the initial hospital care. So whenever it states initial hospital care, you're going to go with the section of 99221 through 99223. With this one here, a couple of different things. When we get into the plan on what they're all going to do, you look at that, but then you see that there is 45 minutes was spent with the patient today. So we are going to go with code 99221. The other thing with that, just kind of go and look to see we have the exam and if that was appropriate, which it was. They did do an exam and the history was appropriate. So we are good with both of those. All right. Okay, let's go on to the next one. Emergency room. Okay, so with these codes here, you are going to be in the 99281 through the 99285 section. All right, so once you look through here, we have dehydration, secondary to number 2 with possible ketoacidosis. We have viral pharyngitis with gastroenteritis component. We do have diabetes, but 6 years without any complications, and they do have asthma, which is stable. So they are being treated with fluids. Insulin is indicated. Once she's able to eat, she'll be able to go home. All right, so a couple of different things here. We have the MDM contained extensive diagnosis management option. Okay, the reason we're saying that this patient does have quite a few diagnoses. The type 1 diabetes that is not controlled. We have pharyngitis, which is worsening. New problem of dehydration, but the asthma is stable. And then we also have possible ketoacidosis. So no, with the diagnosis, let me go ahead and go to our little chart here. Pull it over. So with the number of diagnosis, we're going to go with extensive high. Okay. All right. So now we're going to go back to, remember the next section is the data, the amount of data that was reviewed or complexity. So with that, let's look at that. With this one here, there's no data that was reviewed, so keep that in mind. So that's going to be minimal. High risk to the patient is a condition that was left untreated. So if they didn't treat the diabetes with complications, um, the risk of this could be subjective. Might assume that a moderate risk rather than a high level risk to the patient. If there's a moderate risk or a sign, the code would not change from 99284. If you went higher, then we could have. So let's just go ahead and look here with our risk. Okay. So we do know that extensive right here is high, correct? Okay. We do know that the amount of complexity is minimal or none. I went ahead and with the risk went to just moderate. So with that, that's going to take us to code 99284 on this one. Okay, let me get this pulled back up. So 99284. If by chance you do have a 99285, I will go ahead and let that go for auditing purposes and grading, I should say. Okay, inpatient once again. We have 1-3A. We have history of present illness is good. We have history, so everything's appropriate on our history that covered review of systems, family, social history. The physical examination looks great. They did the physical exam, head, ears, eyes, nose, throat exam. The assessment, we're ruling out appendicitis. This patient is being admitted again. Diabetes, type 1, sinusitis, acute, and asthma. Okay. So a couple of different things with there. They did give us 60 minutes, which does take us right to code 99222. This one can be tricky. Let's just kind of look at the MDM on this. So the MDM did have extensive diagnosis again. We had the patient abdominal pain that was worsening. We have diabetes. We have the sinusitis. We have the asthma. The amount and complexity of data was minimal. They only reviewed lab data, ordered additional tests. And the risk is moderate, and there's one undiagnosed new problem. So we're going to go with a level 3. So let's go ahead and look at our chart again. Okay, so with that number of diagnosis, we went back to, going back here, we did say that it was extensive because we had quite a few. So that's extensive. Amount of complexity, minimal, none. Okay, and moderate. But once again, they did give us a time limit, so that kind of takes care of it. But as you see, it does still match up if we try to do the chart. So you need 2 out of 3. We can't upcode. Okay, so even though we had an extensive number of diagnoses, we would have to have a high number of risk. Okay, then it's 2 out of 3. So then we could have went with that high mark. But since extensive, moderate, minimal, you have to down code. So we only need 2 out of 3. So here's 1, 2, so we can down to a moderate. All right, let's go ahead and move on to case 1-4. Okay, with this one, initial hospital care again. History is appropriate. As you can see, we have family history, social history, review of systems in the history. Now our exam is very appropriate. We have lab. Here's our plan. Okay. And then we go down to 99223, which is going to be the highest one. And let's just talk about that. MDM is level 4, high base number of diagnosis, being extensive. The amount and complexity of data that was ordered was extensive because they reviewed the chest ray, they did abdominal images, and the risk to the patient if the condition is left untreated is high. Okay, so if we go back to our little chart, extensive, high. So this one's pretty much right in the high range. Okay, so a couple of different things when I talk about this chart. If they don't give us a time limit on it or how long they spent with the patient, we have to go to our chart. The biggest thing is use your CPT book. The beginning of your CPT book, I think it's on page 8, is a wonderful reference for medical decision making. Review that. The biggest thing is once you get all 3 of yours figured out, then you come back to this chart and decide, hey, it's extensive, moderate, high, what is it? You only need 2 out of 3. So even if I have an extensive, let's say extensive number of diagnosis, limited complexity, and low risk, okay, I have to go with the low because it's 2. All right, I have to hit all 3 to get up to a high. So just remember that. I can always down code, but I can never up code. All right, I'm hoping that this video helped out.